Hey everyone, welcome back to Auto Anatomy. I'm Sean. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're back working on the Corvair and we're trying to get it one step closer to being a daily driver. Now you've probably heard me mention in several videos before that I could go into all four of the gears on the car, but it was super hard to shift. And on Corvairs, the shifter runs through a tube that runs along the bottom of the car, and the rod that runs inside the tube is lined by paper. Well, since this thing was a flood car, most likely, it's probably got mud and rust and water and all kind of junk just inside that tube, and it's keeping the shifter from moving very well. So when you look at the shifter, you can physically move it, but boy, it's difficult. It's not so bad side to side, but forward and back, it's really hard to shift. Now, Clark's Corvair has come out with a novel solution that actually takes out that paper liner entirely and puts in what look like oil-light bronze bushings on either end. So it should be a nice, smooth operation of the shifter. And on today's video, we're gonna install that oil-light bronze bushing kit from Clark's Corvair. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell to be notified when any new videos come along. It's an absolute free way to support our channel. Enough talking, let's get started. With the car up in the air, this is the bronze bushing upgrade kit that I got for the Corvair shifter from Clark's, and it comes with some very, very detailed instructions that we'll go through, one at a time. But basically, you're just going to take the existing shifter tube out, clean it out, tap the outside tube for some screws, and then slide these little bronze bushings, one in each end. And then slide the rod that runs through the middle of the shifter tube back into it, and then instead of just riding on a paper liner, now it'll have what looks like an oil impregnated bronze guide. So let's get the original shifter tube out of the car. Okay, now that the car is up in the air, the instructions say to remove the bottom tunnel. On my car, unfortunately, someone has decided to remove that and not put it back in place, so I don't have one. So if you have one, I'd be interested in buying it from you. Next it says, remove the pin that connects the shift shaft coming out of the transmission. And I think that is what they're talking about right there. So let's pull that out. And then it says, remove the screws that hold the remove the rear stabilizing rod from the shifter mounting tab, and that is this guy here. So let's pull that pin out and then take this this rod out. I may even have some bushings to replace that just in case. All right, the next step says to take the 4 nuts off the front of the shifter here. Okay, now that the front shifter nuts are out, the tube should be loose here. Looks like it. I wonder if there's just something holding this guy in place here. It looks like this should just come right out. Okay, now got these 2 screws out up here, and this whole assembly comes right out. Got the shift rod out. You can see how muddy and dirty it is. But one thing also to notice is this thing is really, really difficult to move. I mean, it's very, very stiff. So let me start taking this apart. So just loosen this clamp up. Obviously this slid right out. And now this should just push right out. But you can see it is very, very difficult. So I may have to just pull from the other end. All right, I finally, after about 15 minutes of hammering and heating, got the shift rod out of the tube here. And you can see just like how gunked up this is. There's like some of the leftover paper tube liner, and that might explain why this thing was shifting hard. So the first step is going to be getting all of that cleaned up and then somehow figure out a way to clean all that tube out. So I've got a little bit of work to do. All right, now that I've got the shift rod all cleaned up, I'm just kind of trial fitting the bushings on here. And everywhere there's a spot where it gets sticky, it's going to take some sandpaper and just smooth that out so that it should slide right past there. This should be a very, very smooth fit all the way around. Now you can see that it's pocked up a little bit from, you know, that wet paper sitting on it for a while. But ultimately this is infinitely better than the paper liner that it was in. So it took me a little bit of time to get all of the original shift rod linkage and everything cleaned out and get that paper liner out. And you can see this is the aftermath. This thing is toast. Chevrolet, just as a word to the wise, probably not a great idea to put a paper liner in something that might be exposed to water and then expect it to not rust. But now that it's all cleaned up, let's go ahead and start putting in the new bronze bushings. Now that the shifter tube and the outer tube are all cleaned up, it says at the transmission end of the tube, make a mark 3/8 inch from the end, insert the bushing so that it's flush, and then drill a 1/8 inch hole around the edges. And then we're going to start the screws in, and then just put 2 more screws in to kind of lock that bearing in place. Okay, now that one of the holes is drilled, we're going to take a self-tapping screw here and carefully screw it in about halfway just to get it started, and then we're going to back it out and replace it with a different screw. All right, with one of those in place, we're going to drill 2 more holes in and do the same process. So drill a hole, run the self-tapping screw through it, and then replace it with a short screw and a washer. Now on this end, on the shifter end, it's a little bit different. It says to make a mark on the tube 3/4 of an inch from the end of the tube and then recess the bushing 5/16. So here's my 3/4 mark. I'm guessing it's from the end of this tube here. And then we're going to recess our bushing 5/16. So it took a little bit more work than I expected to get the shifter working well. I had to take a little Dremel and go inside and just very lightly sand on both ends here in order to get it to the shaft to slide smoothly. It probably has more to do with the original shaft here than anything, but now you can see how this thing moves very easily in and out. I think this is going to be a tremendous upgrade for the Corvair. So let's get it thrown back in the car. All right, the car's all back together. Let's go take it for a test drive. First impressions, it feels so much better, but it almost feels like there's something wrong because I can shift it too easily. God, this car's running so good now. Wow, the shifter is too easy almost. It almost doesn't feel real. It just drops right into gear, just super easy. The shifter is super smooth. It is so much easier to shift now than it used to, and it almost doesn't even feel real. Like I could shift with one finger now. Yep, second gear works easy, third gear, fourth gear. All right, all 4 gears plus reverse are working well. I think that puts us one step closer to this being a daily driver. Now, unfortunately, that means the last step is the elephant in the room, which is the floors. I've been kind of putting it off because that's kind of a big job. Now, I'm not going to put complete floor pans in the car. It doesn't really need it. There's just a few areas that need patching. And I think it'll be pretty straightforward, not too difficult to do. It's just work. But once I get that done, then we'll finally be able to put carpet in the car, and then I'll start driving it on a regular basis because it's actually a really nice car to drive. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell to be notified when new videos come out. It's an absolute free way to support our channel. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. God bless. We'll see you next time.